Hey, sales professional, I have a question for you. When it comes to your sales process and your sales script, where did you develop or where did you get that process or that sales script? The reason I ask is most of the individuals who gave me a sales process or gave me a sales script, I found that they just made it up and they did what they had been told in the past from a similar manager or someone who oversaw them in the past. Well, the problem with this is that most of these sales processes have been passed down like telephone, and most of them don't work with human psychology and with human behavior. So, most sales professionals are left using tools, processes, and developing skills that actually don't help them in sales. And that is what we are going to talk about today is how to actually sell from a psychological standpoint. So in this week's episode of Sales School, I'll be covering in depth how do you actually sell successfully and give you the 5-step process that has been proven to take a prospect from interested to closing and purchasing what you have to offer. Now, if you're ready to dive into this week's chapter and this week's episode, go ahead and grab a pen and a paper and let's get started. Whether you're a business owner, entrepreneur, investor, or a sales rep, you know that sales is the fastest way to financial freedom and abundance. But if you're anything like most sales professionals, then you've probably struggled in your sales performance from time to time. Well, the truth is, it's not your fault. And there is a solution to help you eliminate those hard days, weeks, or even months that you might be experiencing. Now, you've probably noticed a pattern already, but the professionals in any area of life are the ones who always focus on and master the fundamentals. But here's a scary fact. Surveys show that 70% of everyone who sells for a living describes themselves as social sellers and have never gone through any formal sales training. Now, I'm guessing you don't want to be counted in that 70%, especially if you have plans to do extremely well in your sales career. That's why I want to introduce you to Sales School, the Sales Pros Guide to Sales Fundamentals. Sales School is helping sales beginners and sales experts focus on the fundamentals of sales and human decision making so that they can leave their competition in the dust. Now, if that sounds like a school you'd enroll in, grab a pen and paper, take a seat, and let class begin. Welcome back to Sales School. In this week's episode and in this week's chapter, we're going to be going over chapter 5, which is how do I sell? We've talked about a ton of things up to this point, so I'm really excited to dive into more of the strategy and tactical side behind sales fundamentals and how to build out a great sales system for yourself, for your business, or for your opportunity. Now, specifically, what we're going to talk about in this training video and in this chapter is how do I sell? And then the simple 5-step system to selling. And then lastly, and of course, we're going to give you your next steps that you should take moving forward from this video and this chapter today. Now, before we dive in, it's essential that we answer the real question behind how do you sell? The real question that you should be asking yourself is how do you help others make what we call buying decisions? Now, if you remember from earlier chapters, the importance of decision making in sales, because that's essentially what selling is, and how we sell is really the answer to the question, how do I help other individuals make buying decisions? And that's what we're going to go over today. But first, I want to show you guys where this 5-step selling process actually comes from and why it's been proven by psychologists across the United States. Now, if you're in my advanced training groups or my advanced training programs, you already know what we like to call the EIC model for decision making. Now, this EIC model actually stands for emotion, imbued, choice, model. And this model was actually designed and developed and released by the Annual Review of Psychology in 2014. And what happened is psychologists across the United States came together and they took the past 35 years of research and they asked themselves, do we have a current understanding of how human beings make decisions? Or can we improve the last model which we have been working off of? Now, up to this point, the most popular model that psychologists would actually use for decision making was actually called the traditional decision making model. And the traditional decision making model just basically sets up making decisions between three different options, and it's a very logical model. Well, what we found from our research and from the past 35 years of testing is that human beings actually make most of their decisions from an emotional place rather than a logical place. And this actually on the screen is that model broken down into a simple three-step process. The model can actually be extremely complicated, but I like to teach the model in a simplified form and then add layers to your understanding as you go through more advanced training. So if we take that EIC model, boil it down into its simplest form, it's going to be what you see here on the screen. It starts with what we call an emotional trigger. Once a human being experiences an emotional trigger, they then begin to justify that emotional trigger using what we call logical justification. So they begin creating stories or logical reasons of why they should act or make a decision moving forward. So understanding this in your sales process, we can actually reverse engineer a process and a script that is built in a way to help your prospect go through this important process to make a buying decision. Now, you're probably thinking, what does that process look like? And that process, at its most fundamental form, is going to be what we call the five-step selling process. Now, when it comes to the sales process, what I actually teach in advanced training is a six-step or seven-step sales process, because in this shorter, more condensed process, these are just the fundamentals that are going to be the same across every single industry. Now, the reason why there's two additional steps in my additional or my advanced coaching programs is because there's nuances from offer to offer, and those two additional steps will help with those nuances. And they also optimize for a sales professional who's taking a lot of volume when it comes to the calls and the appointments that they're having. So if you're just starting in sales, maybe you don't have a ton of volume, this is going to be the recommended system and the process that I would recommend you use moving forward until you master this. I'll tell you right now, if you can master these five steps, you're going to outperform 80% of the competition in your industry and in your market, because most individuals don't know and haven't worked on sales fundamentals and haven't memorized this simple five-step process. So let me actually explain what these five steps are. And in coming chapters, we're going to break them down in depth and actually show you how to go through every single step in the sales process. So this is the five-step selling system, but step one is going to focus on building rapport. The reason why this is the first step is because before we can even get someone to experience an emotional trigger, they have to drop their guard down. And that's why we begin with building rapport, because when you have rapport with someone, you naturally have more trust, and they're also going to be calmer and more relaxed to answer the questions that you have. And that's step number one. The second step is to actually ask questions. And the reason why asking questions is so important, not just in the second step, but throughout the entire sales process, is because studies have actually shown human beings listen the most and actually move forward with their decision making when it's internally motivated. So a lot of times sales professionals, I see them making the mistake of telling their prospects what they should do. You actually want to shift that and begin asking questions so that your prospects can come up with those answers themselves. And there's actually a step-by-step process to create those questions, which I teach you in advanced training programs. So that's the second step, is asking those questions so that they begin selling themselves rather than you telling them that they should buy your product or service. Step number three is to actually identify a need or a pain point that you can resolve in someone's situation. Now, here's the cool thing about a need is a need can go both ways. It can be a lack of something, so they're having pain or they don't have something, or it could be having a problem. So what I mean by that is individuals are mostly motivated to get rid of pain that they're experiencing. And that would be one type of need, is to move away from a painful situation that they're having. But another way that individuals move, and another need that they have, is when they don't get what they want or they don't get what they're looking for in their life. And that lack of getting what they want can become a need if you can make it painful enough to show what their life would be like on the other side of a situation after buying your product or service or solution. So that's step number three, is finding a need. Step number four is actually where you present, and it's where you bridge the gap between what they're looking for, their needs, their problems, and the solutions that they've come up with through the questions that you've asked, and you actually connect it to your product or solution. Now, for most individuals, where they go wrong here is they're going to have a custom pitch they're going to have a generic pitch that they use for every single prospect. And that's what's going to cause issues, is because no two people are exactly the same when it comes to their needs and their preferences and what they're looking for specifically. So the more that you can learn how to customize your bridging part of your sales process, the more success you'll actually have with closing those deals. And once again, that's another aspect that we go over in our advanced training, is to teach you how to bridge and how to customize your sales pitch. And I even give you custom sales presentations so that you can build it out according to how do individuals psychologically make decisions, and how can I create a process that helps them do that time and time again, and it predictably leads to a close. Then the step 5 in this process, which is the 5th and final step, is to close and collect. And this is extremely important that you include both of these things, because closing or having an individual move to the next step in the commitment process is one thing, but actually collecting money or collecting that energetic exchange is the second piece of this process. So some individuals might get very, very good at closing, but they're not good at collecting. And then other individuals are the vice versa. They get good at collecting money, but they never got true commitment from their prospect. And that's what typically leads to a lot of refunds and clawbacks and just bad clients and bad situations that you wouldn't want to deal with as a sales professional, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, or as an investor. So those are the 5 steps, you guys. And that is what I was planning on covering in today's chapter and in this week's episode. As usual, we need to discuss your next action steps so that you know exactly what to do after consuming and watching this video. Now, number 1 is, if you're watching this on social media and you haven't yet grabbed the entire online course, which includes pop quizzes, which includes materials, resources that go with this digital training, then all you need to do is comment below this video, Sales School, and I'll get that sent over to you as soon as possible. No strings attached. I just want to help you sell more and increase your income. The second thing is, if you're watching the Sales School course and you're already in the online curriculum, there's actually a pop quiz that will go with this training that's designed to help you retain this information, because once again, information without retaining it and applying it and implementing it is basically useless. And I want to help you not just get information, but actually apply it, implement it, use it, so you can see results from Sales School and what you're actually taking time to watch and do today. So go ahead and click that pop quiz button below this video if you're in the online curriculum. Take that quiz and let's make sure that we remember as much as possible from today's chapter. After you take that pop quiz, you're then ready to take the next step and go to the next training video in the series, and I'll go ahead and see you in that next training video.